Hey, you. Subscribe. You're watching Radio Free Cybertron. Hosted by Brian Kilby with J.D. Church, John DeLuna, XV, Amy Morgan, and Rob Clay. For the latest Transformer news, reviews, and more, visit tformers.com.
This is Radio Free Cybertron for March 13th, 2013. It's not quite Pi Day yet, but it will be tomorrow. This is episode 3 something. I don't know what episode it is, but we do have our crack research team and Radio Free Cybertron historian Paul Agnew currently calculating the actual episode number. It's somewhere between 295 and 350. We're just trying to figure it out. Just depends on what's an episode. It's kind of sad that we have to sort of define what an episode is, but that's pretty much it. So on the show this week, we have quite a few things. We have an interview with Mairghread Scott, who is working on the new Transformers Prime Beast Hunters comic. She's the author of the Rage of the Dinobots, and she's also a writer and staffer at the Hub working on Transformers Prime. We have comic news this week, and Rob, I'm assuming you guys reviewed Regeneration 189.
Yeah, we did that, and Amy has Monstrosity #1.
I love that name, Monstrosity.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, it's prescient, I hope. I hope not, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Also on the show this week, we have Transformers Rewind, and this week we are doing, oh god, it's the mega huge episode we did for Transformers Rebirth. Rebirth, probably one of my top 5 favorite episodes ever, even though it's, you know, a 3-part episode, but it's pretty substantial. Don and I loved that episode quite a bit.
Yeah. Still wish we could have had the 5 parts, but you know, we'll take what we got.
Yeah, we'll definitely take that. Also on the show this week, we have, go back to the show notes because I forgot, because I'm just that awesome. I just got home from work. We have Transformers Prime Retro Review. Amy and Nicole this week review Darkness Rising Part 5. So it's a pretty big week this week. Lots of stuff. Lots of stuff going on. You know, last week we had quite a bit of... Oh, I have just lost my manners. With us this week we have Diecast. Welcome back.
Hey, thank you very much.
We have Don and Rob. Hey guys, how's it going this week?
Not bad.
Pretty good.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm like totally...
I found...
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I found new toys. I'm happy.
Yeah, what did you find? What did you find?
Oh, Cyberverse Trail Cutter with a really great-looking face sculpt that they just didn't use the Ironhide face. Beast Hunter's Smokescreen. I'm looking forward to transforming him. And
have fun.
Yeah, seriously.
Two off topics. I did find Ramhorn and the other Autobot data discs. They're not available at the moment. I found the Legacy Megazord with Diecast.
Diecast is always good.
Yes.
He's two places at once.
That's
and
awesome.
A personal. This shows how old I am, because if you hear this sound, you know what it is.
Yeah, I didn't hear a thing, Don. So I'm assuming it's you. If I hear that, it's Don. Oh no.
Well, it's the talking kit.
It's the woo sound, right? Yeah.
It's the talking Knight Rider car from Diamond Select. So now I have a piece of my childhood.
Yeah, I was saying earlier in the show that Chris Triplett for Christmas had picked up the Transformers Mini Mates Knight Rider. Michael Knight and kit for me, which is pretty cool. I really like it. It looks great on my desk. I was trying to go to the chat and put that up on video and type hi chat, but it's not in the right place. So hi chat. We have a a lot of people here this week, some new faces, some people that we haven't seen before. If you're not watching the show live each week, you should do that. It's awesome. We have a great chat. You can catch us live at tfradio.net/live or tformers.com. And if you follow us on Facebook and Twitter, we also post that too. You might as well just go ahead and, follow us or hang out with us or circle us or whatever they call that on Ustream. It's something. Join our crowd. Our crowd is what we're doing. Hello, the Power Prime. So do that. That's fun. So, last week was a huge news week. We had Masterpiece toys, we had all sorts of stuff. This week, we really only have one thing, and Diecast had brought this up during the week, and it's one of those things I saw that, I don't know, do we want to talk about that or not? Because it's cool, but it's not ground shaking, but it's a slow week. Yeah. And I think it's really cool. So Encore Fort Max will be coming. He'll be packed in styrofoam. So a lot of times lately we've been seeing Transformers packed in plastic, in molded plastic. But I'm assuming, given the mass of Fort Max, that's probably not efficient. And
better for shipping. Yeah,
and he will have painted eyes, so that's new. And his sword can be taken apart. Now, I've never had the Master Sword or any of the remolds of it. Was it originally? Could you originally break it down, Don?
You can only you could take the blade off the hilt. Hang on, I'm just trying to follow a link. Can't see what I'm doing here. Okay, well, as I showed, the blade came off of the hilt, but that was it. So,
so that's pretty much.
Really that's pretty much it. Now, I'm wondering if they got the idea from some of the third-party products that you could break down the Master Sword into armor or other swords and weapons and things like that. So I'm just wondering if they got that idea from a third-party company. But I love the painted eyes because I remember taking some of Mom's nail polish on a color she didn't use anymore and trying to paint the eyes, and it was not good.
That's kind of creepy, but I'm glad that you have those memories. I remember taking baths with my Transformers, so I would say that your memory is better than mine. But when I read this, I immediately thought of Star Saber from Armada. I was thinking maybe they got the idea because, Star Saber was a sword. You could take him apart. I don't know. I don't know that it's necessary to take apart the Master Sword, but apparently it's much bigger than our real eyes. It's bigger in the past.
It's good if you want to take it apart and store it away back in the box, I guess.
I guess so.
Now, in the Japanese cartoon, I'm not remembering the correct name, Cerebros, there was two swords. The small one that Cerebro used, and then the larger one. Maybe the smaller one is built into the larger one, so you can take it apart for both characters.
Well, they had to remold this, right? So it's not like it originally did that. So if they're working from the original mold, they had to modify it. So that's conceivable. It's not like painting the eyes when that's just a change in the process around the toy. It's not like they have to do any molding to that. That's just an after the fact deal. I don't know.
But it'd be interesting to see once these hit, when we start seeing. Heck, I'm even tempted to get one just because if mine ever breaks, I have a spare.
Yeah, that's true. So in the chat, Paladin just asked, is he the only one who doesn't, who wants Star Saber back as a character and not just a weapon? I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't mind having the next show not have a Prime for a while. Have your Star Saber or your some other commander, and then Prime shows up later on as a secondary character or something. I don't know, just something to shake up the basic, formula.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think that's what they're going to try and do with Beast Hunters now. They're going to bring Ultra Magnus in and allow him to lead for a little bit.
Yeah, so that debuts what in about 2 more weeks?
Next weekend, I believe.
Next weekend. You know what else debuts in 2 weeks? G.I. Joe Retaliation.
Oh yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, I'm excited by that.
That movie's going to happen again?
Yeah, I know.
Unless Paramount pushes it back to add 4D or something.
Oh crap! Where are they at? I want to thank Chris Triplett. Last week I chastised him on the show for picking up all of the G.I. Joe Creon. Oh, here they are. All the G.I. Joe Creons. And he actually didn't. He just mostly skipped them because he's not like super into it. But he picked them up for me. So I'm right now only missing Scarlet that I know of. I just want to though point out something. The Adventure Team Commander, substantially awesome. Let me pull that up. So right here, flocked hair. That's amazing. More
I still
toys.
love that they did that.
Yeah, more toys should have flocked hair. And he has this sort of little clueless look on his face, kind of like I do. It's pretty nice. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, so not a lot going on in the news this week. Well, you know, one reason, just a slow week, too. I got home from work 15 minutes before we started the show. But, actually, so yes, they all, so in the chat, Blade Raider is saying, and Kung Fu Grip. Rob and I had this conversation on Twitter. So he doesn't have any grip that separates him from the other Creons. But if you look at it, that they all have a Kung Fu Grip. Mm-hmm. It kind of makes sense. So, Rob, how this... Go ahead, Don.
No, I was going to say, it's sad that I've only seen a picture of the Adventure Team character, but he has more hair than me.
That is true. That is true.
That makes me very sad.
Like, and by volume and, like, per capita, both. So it's...
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And filling in for XV this week will be Brian.
So, Rob, I've been meaning to ask you something. So, so this week you guys review ReGeneration 1. Is there so this past year this 2013, I've been trying to get somebody that I know into reading Transformers comics. Can you give me like your top 5 reasons that people should be picking up more than meets the eye, just off the top of your head? Because I have a friend that I've got him into reading Daredevil. Mm-hmm. But I just can't crack the nut of getting them to read Transformers stuff. It goes back to something that we talked with Mairghread in the interview with. I've been trying to crack that. If people in the chat, or people watching live, or listening in the podcast, if you can shoot me an email at brian@tfradio.net and give me, like, your reasons why. I'm just trying to really win this battle.
I will have to give that some thought, but yeah, you know, if they're ever going to read Transformers comics, and More Than Meets the Eye is a good one to go with. I mean, there is a certain amount of background material that that might not make perfect sense if you just pick it up in the middle, but it's got the best writing, the most interesting characters, it's the most entertaining to read of just about any Transformers comic I have ever had. Yeah.
Let's go ahead actually and jump to that interview right now that we had with Mairghread. That we had that last week. It was you, XV, and I. We sat down and spoke with her. I really expected that interview to go for about 15 minutes, but I think by the time it was said and done, it was about 45 minutes long. We had a lot of fun speaking with her, and that was just a blast. So let's go ahead and jump to that, and then after that we'll go to comic news. Then we'll go to Transformers Prime, and we'll finish things up with the Transformers Rewind episode for the week, which I said again was the Rebirth. So let's go ahead and come back after this.
Hi, my name is Mairghread Scott. I've been a fan of Transformers, for a really long time. I started when I was young. I grew up with the Beast Wars show, and I sort of fell in love with that, and I was a little too old by the time Beast Machines came around to get into that. And then Transformers kind of dropped off the map for me. Saw all the Michael Bay movies. I thought they were really great, and then I got a call from a friend of mine on the Transformers Prime show, and they were like, hey, do you want to come over and we need a writer's assistant. And so I was like, absolutely. Came over, and one of my jobs as a writer's assistant was to sort of dive into the mythology and the backstory. And so, as well as being a fan growing up, I've also sort of become a professional fan. And when I heard from Mike Johnson about Rage of the Dinobots, that, you know, Mike had written with us on the show, Mike worked for Kurtzman and Orsi, and he let me know, you know, I'm working on this comic, it's supposed to link in with all this continuity stuff. He knew I was really good with Transformers. We call it the aligned continuity. And so he was like, do you want to team up? And we did, and everything worked out great, and now we're doing it again.
Yeah, that's awesome. That actually sort of goes into what I wanted to ask next. I was going to ask, you know, what your duties are working on Transformers Prime, but you said that you do a lot of like research and study. What resources do you use for that?
Well, there are a couple of different kinds of research I do as the writer's assistant. Or you're also in live action, you'd sometimes hear my job be called a script coordinator, but in animation, the two both kind of mean the same things. They mean different things in live action, but they don't mean the same things in animation. And basically, the three main jobs I have on Transformers are, one, I check all the scripts and make sure everyone's on the same page, that they get cleared through legal and that everything's spelled right and stuff, which can be harder than you think on Transformers sometimes.
But sometimes there's no consensus on what the spelling actually is. So
yes. Sometimes people have been called multiple things over the years, and so it's like, no, they're always spelled this way. So the other aspect that I have is, you know, there are 2 novels and 2 video games, 3 video games that we're supposed to be in continuity with that are part of the quote-unquote aligned continuity. So the Exiles and the Exodus novel, the War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, and then the Transformers Prime. I believe it was a Wii video game. It was just called Transformers Prime. And so it's my job, you know, I had to read all of those and play through all of those, and then I sort of...
That's such a hard job.
Well, you know, everyone loves playing the video games with me at first, and then I'm like, oh, you have to go back and click that box, and now click that box, and okay, let's restart this game so that guy can say that one line again, because I really need to hear that one line. Like, then they don't like playing with it so much. But so I keep track and make sure that we're in continuity with them, and then I also, whenever we're just brainstorming and stuff, I'll mine through the old issues and the old, you know, sweep through the wikis and stuff, and okay, well, we kind of want someone who's kind of like this. Well, who can we go through? And I'll talk with Brand, like who's available and who can fill that slot. Or if we're brainstorming ideas, well, these are some kind of wacky ideas we've seen before in Transformers, or this is kind of how this thing works in Transformers. So it helps get our more freelance writers, gives them a running start. And it also makes it a lot easier for me to do these kinds of, you know, comics that are bridging multiple platforms.
Well, the next question was going to be about how much of an influence the various aspects of the aligned continuity were, but you kind of touched on that in your last answer. If there's anything more you'd like to expand on with that, though? Yeah,
how much of that do you have to take into consideration with what you do? It sounds like you're pretty involved in following that.
Well, look, in any way that, you know, there's always a point where I have to take off my day job coordinator hat and I have to put on my night job just writer hat. And so it's any way I can acknowledge the continuity or explain the continuity or work with the continuity, we make every effort to do that. There are times where you don't always necessarily get to delve into every continuity thing. I know on Rage of the Dinobots, like, everyone was like, oh my gosh, she's got to go into House Sludge, you know, made it back to all the Dinobots. And it's like, we don't have the page space for that in this one, but we'll do it eventually. But it's there. We think everything through, and I try very hard. And my partner Mike and I have many discussions about how much information we can put into any one story. But the most important thing when you're writing any kind of story is to, first and foremost, write a good story. Obviously, I don't think anyone would want us to just do, there are lots of great sites and stuff like that just explain long histories of each characters, but that's not the most visual fun thing to do in a comic or when I write the TV show. The most fun thing to do is to tell a great story, and hopefully we cannot contradict anything in the continuity, and we can shed a little light on some aspects of the continuity. So that's our main goal.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, prioritizing the great storytelling first. There's some writers that don't really get that concept, and that's great to hear.
Yeah, it sounds like you're able to use the continuities and you kind of, try and tie them together, but you're not constrained by all the other takes on the aligned continuity, and I think that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's definitely something, we try and consider, because, as someone who's also written for Transformers Prime, I really wanted, and Mike, because he wrote for Transformers Prime as well, we wanted the comics to have that same level of storytelling, and it's a really intense level of storytelling and emotion, and so it was very important to us that we felt like we were delivering not necessarily the I don't want to say like seriousness, because then you think of like, oh, it's got to be grim 24/7, but the sort of gravitas that the Prime characters give.
When did work on the Beast Hunters book begin? Was it being planned alongside Rage of the Dinobots, or did you start on Rage first?
We found out we were going to do Rage. We wrote Rage all the way through, and then when it was in the last issue, we turned in, and it was a few weeks later, and they said, do you want to keep going? Do you want to do Beast Hunters? And we had, obviously when we did Rage, we talked about, like, if we wanted to go on, these are places we could go, but we didn't actually didn't officially pull the trigger until after Beast Hunters was written, so, and in the canon in process.
Okay. Well, that largely answers my next question, which was, basically, I was curious if one of the main ideas behind Rage of the Dinobots was to bring people who had only seen Prime up to speed on what had happened in Fall of Cybertron, or or not. So.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things you'll see in Rage, and it kind of, you haven't seen it yet, but it's so funny. I can't wait for you guys to see Season 3, because we knew that, coming out of the Fall of Cybertron video game, look, it happens thousands of years before the Transformers Prime TV show takes place, and on a different planet. So we were like, how do we touch in? But there are a lot of little Easter eggs and ideas in Rage that when you watch Season 3, you'll be like, oh my gosh, they talked about that in Rage, or they mentioned that in Rage. So it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily, you're not going to read it and be like, oh, this is where Season 3 is going to go. But when you watch Season 3 and you pick Rage up again, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, it was all there.
Cool.
So that's what we're hoping. At least I hope so.
One thing we really appreciate is where you said that Beast Hunters would be taking a 2-issue story approach. So it'll be easier for new readers to pick up the comic without being completely lost. Do you feel like this also brings the comic writing process more in line with how you would write episodes for TV?
It does. And we wanted to do it for two different reasons. One is that, it's a format that Mike worked really successfully on Star Trek that I actually always admired as a reader, because it just makes it easier for new readers to pick up in issue 1 and, or pick up in issue 2 and get last month's issue. And we really wanted the comic to be very accessible. It does bring it more in line with how you would write a TV show. We actually write Beast Hunters, the comic, a lot like we would write Prime, the TV show, and that we sort of both talk about where we're going, and we hear each other's individual episodes, but when it comes to breaking out those episodes, it's like, okay, I'm doing this, you're doing this, all right, we're moving forward, and then we'll just touch base, all right, we like where we are, okay, we're moving to the next step, touch base again, so that's really pleasant. But the other thing, too, is that, there are some really great IDW Transformers comics going on right now. And one of the things that I like best about the other lines are that they are so involved, and it's such intensive storytelling, and we're like, instead of competing with these long form stories, let's see if we can do something different, if we can give fans a little bit more of bite-sized pieces of stories.
Mm-hmm. I want to jump in with a quick question here. From what you were saying, it sounds like, for example, you'll be working primarily on one story for Beast Hunters, and Mike will be working on another one?
Yeah, we're both involved with breaking it, but then we sort of, one of us will be the primary writer, and then the other person will just come in with the notes. So the same way that, like, if you were writing TV, all our writers would be in a room, and you all pitch out your ideas, everyone agrees that we like that idea, we all agree on where we're going, and then someone goes off and writes it, and you come back and touch base. So it's that same kind of process.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like that approach of sort of being an alternative to, like, Robots in the Skies and More Than Meets the Eye and, Regeneration 1. I mean, great comics, but, this is a much... It's kind of... Okay, so, like, I love More Than Meets the Eye. I mean, I'm a big comics fan, and it's one of the best comics I read, and I'm not grading it on a curve. Like, in the past, we've had to grade Transformers comics on a curve. So this is a great Transformers comic. But, like, these comics are, like, genuinely great comics. But they are long story arcs, so if I fall back in a month or two, it takes me a while to catch back up. And having these bite-sized chunks, that's a great approach, and, I think that'll work out well.
Yeah,
because one of the things that I had with my comic book friends is that when I would talk to my comic book friends, there'd be a lot of interest in Transformers, but people just didn't know where to start or where to get in, and there was a sort of feeling that Transformers was kind of its own thing, its own little isolated comics world, and we really wanted to sort of break that down. Like, I want you to be able to give a Transformers comic to any of your friends that reads any kind of comic, and have them be able to get on board. We always like to say that our motto is, all you need to know is that Transformers are robots that turn into things. That's it.
And yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that is great. And in general, I think IDW is doing a great job, and a much better job than maybe in the past, of handling licensed comics. These characters. Nicole really loves, I guess it's the Ponies comic.
My Little Pony.
Yeah, My Little Pony.
Yeah, and she like really loves that, and I've heard a lot of great buzz around it. I haven't read it, but in general, like, all of the IDW books are, knocking it out of the park. Star Trek, Ghostbusters, and all of those are doing really well. That's really cool. So I guess in sort of writing, both the TV series and the comics, if there are any stories that are pitched for the series that don't necessarily make it to the series because you have a constraint of a certain number of episodes that you can actually fit in, will some of those stories or ideas be explored in the comic, perhaps?
Oh, well, we've always had a really open, close relationship. So if you guys notice that Mike's graphic novel that he did for Transformers Prime became an episode of Transformers Prime. His first graphic novel became the episode that featured Shockwave in Season 2, which I'm totally... Was it Out of the Past? I totally forget the name of it.
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the flashback episode right after... It was actually right after mine episode, so it would have been episode 217. But yeah, it was completely... He pitched the idea as a graphic novel, and we really liked it, and we were like, yeah, let's put it right in. And... This is definitely, comics are definitely a place where we can explore a little bit more. The thing about CG is there aren't any constraints on the kinds of stories you tell, but there are a lot of constraints about sometimes the way that you can tell them. So, where you can set a story, or how many characters can you have, how many new characters can you introduce. That all is something that has to be constantly factored in with CG, which is why, as you may have noticed, we spend a lot of time in canyons. So we have fantastic, beautiful characters, and we have fantastic, beautiful canyons, and we've lit those canyons every which way that we possibly can to feel like all kinds of amazing, different canyons. But you can't necessarily, pitch a story where you're like, oh my gosh, we're going to do a road trip on Cybertron, and we're going to go to this location, then we're going to go to this location, we're going to do that. Like, you couldn't do G.I. Joe Renegades as Transformers in CG. Like, That would just be sort of a little too crazy. And the comics are a real chance to sort of get to push those. And I personally really want to explore more of Cybertron. I just think that Cybertron is such a cool place. Like, I really think you can get a lot of visual impact out of just the planet of Cybertron.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are opportunities to revisit things from the past. G1, Generation 1 had a lot of interesting concepts around Cybertron. You said that you were a little too old for Beast Machines. I was in my early 20s. But I know that's sad. But one thing that we haven't really had a chance to revisit is what happened to Cybertron, after Beast Machines. Certainly it's a different continuity. It's not part of the Aligned continuity, but certain themes could still be revisited or touched on, or Easter eggs could be inserted that, there's a lot of opportunity there, and that sounds great.
Oh, yeah, we're always looking for that. And even just, one of the things I really wanted to try and capture a little bit in Rage of the Dinobots was just how beautiful Fall of Cybertron was as a game. And one of the things that we want to keep on capturing and want to explore even more is just, I love the idea of essentially a living planet, there are always things moving on Cybertron, and it's not a solid planet, there's layers of underground, and there's essentially a whole Underdark of Cybertron, and we're really anxious to sort of explore that. What does a Cybertronian mountain look like? What does a Cybertronian cavern look like? How does a Cybertronian cave-in work, or how does a Cybertronian, those, just really push a very extreme kind of landscape.
You've already answered most of this, but you've said that there are going to be plot elements and little nods to what's going on in the third season of Prime in the book. Are we going to see specific characters that appear in both places? I would imagine Shockwave would be one, but other than that...
Well, you'll see some. One of the constraints that we have is that we had to make sure that, the show is always leading the charge. So it's not, we wanted to make sure that you're not going to read something in the comic that's going to spoil something in the TV show. So we're always working a little bit behind the TV show. But once things in the TV show open up, they will definitely, as soon as, essentially their assets or their characters or their scenery becomes available to us, that is definitely then immediately thrown in up for grabs for our storytelling. So there are going to be definitely things that interact, but we just want to make sure, because we're in continuity with the show, that we stay within continuity with the show. So if a character is on Earth, then they're not also on Cybertron at the same time, just to avoid the kind of thing you'll sometimes see where, even though I love Marvel, there's always that joke of how many teams can Wolverine be on, or how many teams can Spider-Man be on.
Yeah.
We really want you to feel like our comic is happening at the same time as the TV show, and you don't have to sort of squint your eyes and be like, oh, except for that, except for that, except for that.
You had mentioned earlier about the limitations of using the CG cartoon format in terms of settings, but also in terms of characters. So with the freedom the comic book gives you, do you have plans to introduce characters from the toy line that have gone largely untouched otherwise?
We have interesting things for characters, too. We would like to touch on characters of the toy line. I'm going to be real honest and say that I kind of have a wish list from G1 and, my own personal... I know, Mike, we all have our own personal little pile of Transformers that we desperately want to see back, so we're definitely pushing them. But trust me, the Hasbro brand, they make fantastic toys, and we want to showcase those toys, and... they want us to showcase those toys. So it's all a nice, happy family. We're moving together.
What does the future hold for you?
God, I really can't say. Not because I don't know, but
that's a good
answer. I just don't know how much has been announced.
That's a good answer. I like that.
Yeah,
answer.
That's a very good answer.
That's a happy answer.
Yeah, that's a happy. But just to know that, I'm well and I'm writing and Beast Hunters is moving forward, and other things are moving forward, and we hope to live on Cybertron for a very long time.
Very cool.
Cool.
So I guess at this point there's not a known endpoint to the Beast Hunters comic. It's just going to go as long as it's supported.
Well, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's not a miniseries like Rage of the Dinobots.
No, we haven't designed it to be, Rage of the Dinobots we always knew was going to be 4 issues and out. So this we have continued to hopefully build and grow for as long as we can do it. Dudes, guys, don't you want to hear about how the story starts?
Yeah.
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 If you can tell us, tell us.
So we start the story. The whole story is about the fact that, we really... I don't want to be too spoilery, but we really we took all the characters from Rage, and remember how they said they were gonna stay on Cybertron and take care of things. Mm-hmm. Well, we decided to bump them way far in the future, and essentially the Dinobots are attempting to keep a small group of survivors alive, and they've actually had to retreat into Cybertron's underground caverns and form their own kind of little Dinobot city that Grimlock and the Dinobots are running.
That sounds cool.
It is
really
very
neat
cool.
concept.
And we really tried to play the idea that, there's this great tension with the fact that, they're Dinobots, yay, we're accepted and we're heroes, but also, in a lot of ways the Dinobots are great heroes and they're great fighters, but they're not necessarily super adept at, what's the old phrase, the people who are great generals don't necessarily make great kings.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of tension with the fact that, Grimlock is great in a fight, but a lot of running, taking care of a group of people is not fighting. And
he does not strike me as a peacetime commander, no.
He really struggles with that. He's really struggling with peacetime commander, and that is something that it's not peacetime by any means, but that's something we really want to push, is that, it's a weird thing, and I think in a lot of ways the Dinobots, their lives would have been easier if they were still outcasts that no one wanted to talk to. It's harder when you're the heroes that everyone looks up to.
Administration is never fun.
Yeah.
Exactly, and we're going to get to explore all that richness too, because as their roles grow, essentially each of the Dinobots has been able to grow more as their own character. So the first couple of issues are all about Sludge and his life and how he views everything. And yes, I will finally explain what happened to Sludge in the tunnels. I know what happened to Sludge in the tunnels.
And see,
but
that's
you
one
guys
thing I
have
really
to remember
enjoyed.
that the problem that we faced was that at the end of that scene in the video game, Jazz takes out his short-term memory, so Sludge doesn't know what happens to Sludge in the tunnels.
Oh.
And the Dinobots weren't there, so the Dinobots didn't. So we ran into the problem where everyone was like, you should totally tell that story. And it's like, as soon as we get a character who knows that story, who would tell that story, we will tell that story.
Mm-hmm. Here's a quick question. How many issues are done at this point? How many are written and how many are planned ahead of that?
That's trade secret.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So more planned than you would think, more written than you would think, at least outlined. In terms of scripting, we're moving forward. That's all a trade secret. And it's a little different on this series because since the way we were working, we can sort of tag team a little more. But it's definitely a lot faster turnaround than anything you do for television because it takes a little more than a year for a prime TV episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no, it's funny. No one thinks about that, but yeah, it takes a little more than a year from the time that I come up with an idea for a prime TV episode to the time that it actually airs.
I know that Takara and Takara Tomy, they're doing Transformers Prime figures, but they're not getting the fiction, are they? They're not getting the series.
I have no idea about that.
Okay.
That's Hasbro. That would probably be like a Mike Kelly question or a Hasbro question. So
okay.
But yeah, we're not. They just tell us they want us to write things, and we say thank you, and we write them. And we're very happy to write them.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, that's a funny thing that people think a lot of times that like, oh, how'd you guys pitch this idea? But it was more that like, a lot of times with branded work, the brand knows that it wants someone to write this, and then they come to you and they say, hey, do you have an idea if we wanted you to do X story with, if we wanted you to do X characters? And it was like, oh, okay, yeah, great. We pitched this idea. So that's
Does that make it easier or harder?
It depends. It really depends on the brand, and it depends on the editors and the kind of stories you were telling. In a way, it was actually really nice working on Rage, because it was really clear, because we knew that they wanted to do something that tied in with Fall of Cybertron, and that tied Fall of Cybertron to Prime, and that they wanted the Dinobots to be involved. And so that made it really clear for us. Like, okay, well, we know that the Dinobots are here. Where do we want to take them? We know where we're going, and then you sort of carve your story out, which is how I am used to storytelling. There are other times where, you have your own, like, oh, we should totally do this, or we should do that, or we'll shoot the Dinobots into space. It'll be great.
I want to see that.
But that's
one of the recurring elements in your answers has been how you have a lot of the story elements worked out in advance in your head, and that it makes me so look forward to the Beast Hunters series upcoming, because some of my favorite fiction has had a writer or writers behind it who have that quality where they can see way down the road where all this is going. So that really gets me excited for this book.
Well, thank you. It's funny because I feel like I always end up writing the really emotionally charged episodes, because I think that one of the things about a well-written character, and fortunately Transformers has a lot of really well-written characters, is that they just have natural tensions. There are natural things that you can see coming. So, when I was working on Stronger Faster, I knew that, like, oh, I want to do something with, Ratchet is actually kind of an aggressive personality. He never gets to express that. Like, let's do that. Or when I was working on Herd, it was like, well, clearly we know that Miko is super passionate about her friend, and she kind of has a low capacity for planning ahead.
And my compliments to you on that episode, because Miko can be a kind of abrasive character, and to date, that is my favorite Miko episode. That was really good.
That was the episode where I was like, dang it, I'm going to make people like Miko. Because she's actually a great character to write for, because she goes after what she wants.
I can see that. I can totally see that.
But,
I mean, you succeeded totally, too.
Yeah.
I'm actually really surprised and totally happy that they let me do that episode. Because from day one, I was like, Miko... One day when Miko's 22 and she's basically Sarah Connor on, like, Bulkhead with a Gatling gun... Everyone's going to love her.
You mentioned you came into Transformers on Beast Wars. Do we have you to thank for the Bantor reference in the one episode of Transformers Prime?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, well, Dwayne wanted our story editor. He'll do things where he'll just email me and he's like, oh my gosh, I want, what are types of money that they use on Cybertron, or what kind of sports do people play on Cybertron, or what's a funny reference here. So the question was sort of, what's the most absurd thing that Ratchet can refer to? And it was like, oh, Bantor.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Everybody loved that one.
Although he came up with the tiger in his tank. That was...
And you just added the mandrill.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I gave him a list of, like, here's a half a dozen, like, crazy Transformers. I was really pushing for the one who's half fish, half bee.
Yes.
I think it was from one of the Japanese runs.
Injector.
Yeah, but Injector was actually, not that it's important, but released here in the U.S.
This is just the kind of nerds we are, I'm sorry.
But Injector, I think...
I will pay good money for an Injector
Really?
toy. I think the idea of a fish bee transformer, just to sit there and look like, oh my gosh, it's the fish bee.
I'm pretty sure Injector goes for cheap on eBay.
If you could time travel back to 1999 right now, there's a lot of Kmarts that would love you.
Here's an Injector on eBay now for $13. Here's one for $8. I think you won't have a problem getting an Injector.
No, you won't.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Well, maybe when I go to BotCon, I can trade like a signed copy of something for an Injector.
I probably have an Injector or two that I could give you if you really want one. So.
Oh, thank you.
So that's great. We maybe Retrax could get some love next. I think Retrax is the character that needs to. I love Retrax. Actually,
I really like Cosmos. But I like the version where he just accidentally landed on a Hollywood set and was like, oh, UFO is a great idea to disguise myself as. Like, I also like the version where he's just kind of cynical and jaded and he's like, I'm just going to buzz, humans and pretend to abduct cows whenever I'm bored. But I kind of have a soft spot for the idea that he's just sort of a lovable, guy who is like, oh, this is a fantastic disguise. And then everyone's like, yeah, not so much.
Yeah, I think in Generation 1, most of the characters are either lovable screwballs or little, XVs, basically. I'm thinking of Gears.
Oh, okay.
He's cantankerous.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that one.
He's cantankerous. But yeah.
So I really like, and I hope I don't screw this up, but I really liked Wheelie, and I thought about writing him, but then I remembered that you have to rhyme everything.
Not if it's Japanese. So I think...
if it's a Japanese continuity, they dropped that because I guess that's just too hard for them.
And he's also a little jerk too. So.
Yeah.
I relate to Japanese Wheelie, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun writing jerks. You've read Slug. Slug's a jerk, and that's awesome. I love when they're like, we should all go rescue the Autobots, and he's like, nuts to the Autobots. I don't want to rescue the Autobots. You go rescue the Autobots.
If you could fit Willie in, that would be pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but if I do, he's not going to rhyme, because that's just too much work.
That's okay.
Fair enough.
That's okay.
Sure.
It's hard enough as it is. You can still pre-order in Diamond the trade of Rage, and you can pre-order the first issue of Beast Hunters. They're both in Diamond right now. And I think if you submit your order, you can submit your order to the 18th for your local comic book store.
Okay.
So if anyone hears it and you like the idea, you can get it on your pull list.
Okay, cool. Want to cover any other secrets?
We are introducing a couple of new characters there will be fresh faces right from the start of Beast Hunters. So that's really important to us that we use that space in comic books to introduce new people. But I think I'm just going to tease that one.
Okay.
Because I think you guys will never guess who shows up to the Dinobots looking for help. And I hope everyone loves it as much as I do.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm definitely picking that up.
But, no, I guess I would say that to any Transformers fans out there, if you ever have any questions, we are always here. You can tweet me. I'm at Mairghread Scott on Twitter. And I'm M. Scott Writes on Tumblr. My blog name, I think if you can search those, my blog name is Shotgun Mermaid. So...
Okay.
So yeah, you guys can always reach out to me, and if I can answer you, I will answer you. And if I can't answer you, I will at least make a delightfully sarcastic comment. And Mike is not on Twitter, but if you have anything for Mike, I will definitely get you a response.
Very cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
This has been great.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, tell everyone.
Warning. The following segment may contain spoilers for the most recent Transformers comic books. This week, Rob and I will be talking about Regeneration 1, issue 89, and Amy's bringing us news and a review of Monstrosity number 1.
Hello, news bits today in the Transformers comics news circles. We've got an alternate cover that has been revealed for More Than Meets the Eye 15, which will be out this month. Yay! We're going to get 2 More Than Meets the Eye issues. Yay! Anyhow, you can check that. I believe that's on DeviantArt. I think Josh Burcham put that out there. So check out his DeviantArt page. Woohoo! Also, we have some commentary for Spotlight Bumblebee. on the Facebook page, the Transformers Facebook page. And Amazon has revealed that the next issue of this book series, the Transformers Classified, this is Battle Mountain. This is the second book. The third book, called Satellite of Doom, has also been put up on Amazon. So it will be available this fall. So if you're reading this or giving it or reading it to your little ones like I am, I'm reading this for my kids. Because it's for younger readers. Not really easy readers, though, because it's the readers that are at least able to read. I'm reading it to my 3rd grader, 4th grader, that type of age group. Fun story, a little predictable, but it's got my interest, which more than other things have not held my interest as much. So I've got a couple questions. I'm like, hey, I can't wait to see where they go with this. So loving it. So if that's something that works for you, then yeah, it's going to be out this fall. And last and certainly not least, this week we should be getting another issue of Monstrosity. Now, we have one issue out, which I'm going to review in a few minutes. But for right now, yeah, it should be out sometime this week. By the time this video goes up, it'll probably be out already. So if you are following Monstrosity, go look for it. It should be out on Comixology or the IDW app. And now for the review. So, I'm reviewing Monstrosity issue number 1. It's written by the same creative team that brought us Autocracy. So, it's written by Chris Metzen and Flint Dilley and illustrated solely by Livio Ramadelli. You can buy Autocracy in trade or digital, but from a Monstrosity, only the digital format issue is available right now. This 8-page chapter is titled Derelicts. So the story so far. Long ago on the planet Cybertron, after eons of despotic rule, the lineage of the cruel and unjust primes was broken by police officer Orion Pax and the renegade Megatron, leader of the Decepticons. Together they overthrew Zeta Prime, but Megatron betrayed Orion, leaving him for dead. Orion uncovered the matrix of leadership and defeated the Decepticons, freeing Cybertron and becoming Optimus Prime. But the world's problems are far from over. So we open with an explosive presence from none other than the Dinobots, who seem to be on a self-serving mission of their own to get the spark off Cybertron. And they're trying to do so by scoring a stash or something for Swindle. However, it ends up being bad intel, and they get a lousy stash, half of what Swindle had promised them, so they're not very happy. Then we find out what Optimus Prime has been dealing with, as he's now Prime. And not everyone is as supportive in the Cybertronian government about this. He meets direct resistance from none other than Diatlas. He says, we're just exchanging one tyrant for another. Whoa. But Prime handles it in stride and is able to keep Diatlas at the table of discussion and committed to finding ways to make it work for everyone peaceably. Even if it's just only out of respect for the Matrix. Then we find out about Megatron and who's taken over. Scorponok. He's in deep space to dispose of a broken Megatron, and as they cast him off into deep space, they toss him off onto the death world of Junkion. Optimus Prime returns to his quarters to have a chat with an old friend who's pretty impressed with how he's been doing, keeping things together, yet Optimus Prime, he has his doubts, they're not going to go away. And to wrap up the issue, we go back to Megatron, who's risen from the impact crater on Junkion, but he's not alone, and things are about to get kind of rowdy. Yeah, kind of rowdy. Okay, so once again, it's great to see these guys back. I was pretty impressed with all of the characters that they had in this issue. It's like every time I turned a page, I saw a character I didn't expect to see in the issue, and I was pretty stoked for that. While nothing incredibly exciting happened, I still felt there was payoff seeing the characters that I didn't expect every time I turned a page. I'm eager to see Megatron take on the Junkions. I'm interested in what will happen with the conflict with Optimus and Diatlas. I want to know why the Dinobots feel that they're jeopardizing everyone on Cybertron by being there. There are enough questions in my first read to have me interested in the next issue. So, am I completely hooked yet? No, but I've got enough to keep me reading because I'm like, okay, I want to know some of these questions. I want to see what they're going to do with it. Art, once again, is very moody and gritty. Cybertron looks like a mess. Levio pulls off a wrecked world trying to pull the pieces back together. If you haven't been a fan of Levio's work, this probably won't change your mind, but I'm liking it. And I've been following his stuff since he first joined us on Chaos, and I'm seeing shifts in his work that show improvement in his craft. It just has this energy, and his coloring really sells it for me. So, yes, there are G1 lines repeated in the story that they've had. We've heard them all before. It's great, and that this creative team they've been known to use this in the past, so it's not anything new. It's the same thing that they've done before. But I think that they pulled it off for me because it was from characters that have never really said those lines before, or it just made sense. Instead of rolling my eyes, I just chuckled at them. Like, I still function. It's a Megatron phrase. I expect that Megatron, no matter what continuity he's in, would say that. It's like me saying it's fantastic. It's just, hey, it still works every single time I say it. Okay. So for me, I'd rate this a 4 because I was pretty pleased with the character service, and I got payoff from that. These issues are $1 issues, so it doesn't feel like it's breaking the bank for it. So, and you can buy them at IDWpublishing.com or at Comixology. And that's my review. Well, that's all from me. This is Amy signing off for next week. We'll see you then.
Okay, so Regeneration 1. Regeneration 1.
Mm-hmm. You're usually the one to say nothing happened this issue, but nothing happened this issue.
Well, it's kind of like the last story arc, where issue 4 of 5 was, just nothing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pattern now.
Mm-hmm. I almost kind of wish we have like 3 different story threads going on, and I kind of wish we'd just get like one issue setting things up, one issue each to each of those story threads, and then the finale that hopefully allegedly ties it all together. Just something to change what we're doing here, which is kind of drifting from point to point, giving tiny bits of new or newish information, or as new as anything in this gets. And, just kind of on cruise control to the end of the storyline.
I mean, it was so meandering feeling, this issue, that almost none of what was going on really made sense unto itself.
Yeah.
The dialogue between Scorponok and Perceptor, for instance, just seemed to be completely all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
With nothing really connecting before or after it. And even the stuff Scorponok is saying directly to Perceptor, it feels half random.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I got out of it is that, he was threatening Perceptor, essentially. I know when to shut up to you.
Right. But it was written in the most, I don't even know what word to use. The way it was written, though, you can get the point, but it's so much more than it needed to be to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Still can't think of the word.
A little bit roundabout, but
that's not the word, but yeah.
But yeah, and again, I'm just sitting here. I was sitting there rereading it this afternoon and thinking, okay, one of the problems here is that we are really trying to wind the Generation 1 continuity around until it's close enough to G2 for Furman to move on with what he has wanted to do since the end of G2.
Which, in that case, why not just start after G2 and build from there?
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have minded that.
I wouldn't have. There was interesting plot threads left at the end of G2.
Yeah,
which he would have squandered the same way he's squandering this, but still.
I don't know, maybe not, because like I said, it just feels like he's trying to get everything wound around to basically where the story elements he wanted to use at the end of G2 will work here, and it is taking an awful lot of what's the word?
Time?
Time, yeah, that's the one, to get it done. And I don't know. I just somehow I picture this within somewhere around issue 94, 97, somewhere in there, to go, oh crap, we're almost out of time, and go into full info dump mode.
Well, at least if that was to happen, there'd be something happening in those issues where they're rapidly scrambling to explain everything they were trying to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And, wasted 17 issues not explaining already.
Yeah.
And see, if he is trying to get things back around to where he can use the G2 plots, or post-G2 plots, whatever those might have been, I hope it's not going to take, 13 issues of this to get to that point.
Yeah.
We're already at 9 issues in. It's time for this story arc to end and just go and do something else.
Yeah, it's time for us to get to the point. And the worst part is that I'm convinced that some of the things that we've been spending time on, we've been basically doing a meanwhile back on Earth thing for every issue of this, and I'm certain at this point this is not even going to tie into this storyline. That's probably setting up for whatever comes after we're done with Scorponok on Cybertron, and it will have no impact whatsoever on the current story. Likewise with the little aside we got to Soundwave and Bludgeon last issue. What I was hoping to see last month, and I would still love to see, is just all of these Decepticon factions come together and end up fighting against each other. That could at least be entertaining. Mm-hmm. But no, they're going to form a line, and they're going to queue up and be dealt with one story arc at a time.
Yeah.
With little meandering previews of the next story arc, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's clear what the modern Tales on Earth is gonna come to in the end. Galvatron's probably gonna kill Optimus Prime, and go back to Cybertron with the arc, and that's gonna be our final storyline.
Yeah.
Which basically means we're gonna be seeing lots of little snippets of that through the next 6 issues. Alongside the other Decepticon storyline that's going to start in issue 91.
Yeah.
In one manner of speaking, this series is really easy to read. But boy, is this hard to read.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, since you brought it up now, whether maybe Furman, as he's trying to go back and remember what he was going to do at the end of G1, I wonder if he's confusing some of the stuff he had planned for G2, would that have continued, and he's kind of unintentionally mashing them up somewhat.
Either that, or it is actually intentional, and he's trying to find some middle ground where he can use all the story elements he ever wanted to use and wrap it all up at once. And 20 issues might be enough for that if you don't take your time.
Yeah.
We're kind of taking our time. I don't know. These issues, I almost want to say that these issues actually need to be more self-contained instead of longer story arcs. Because there are no real natural stopping points for these, and some of the things in More Than Meets the Iron Robots in Disguise have really put a point on that lately, because they know where to stop an issue. Right. Whether it's because that's the end of this month's story, or because they have come up with a tremendous cliffhanger, they know what they're doing.
See, the problem okay, in the past we've talked about how it seems like there's a set amount of story that he planned out ahead of time, and he's been trying to figure out how to break that down into a set run length.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the way the issues are paced, it seems a lot more like the style you would have where you're writing an open-ended title, and
Mm-hmm.
you're making story arcs to just go a stretch of time without regard for, well, we only have this many issues left to do this with. He's treating it more like, well, this will go for a while, then we'll move on to something else, and it'll just continue on, and I will tell the story I want to. There is this clash of approaches, and I think that's really hurting what the book could be.
Yeah. I think you're right there. I almost wonder if he's hoping that this will be popular enough that it will get some kind of extension and he'll be able to just keep going with it. And that's why he's almost afraid to commit to doing some of the more decisive things that this story would need to do to actually be really good.
The alternative that strikes me is that basically what he has in mind is the last 5-issue storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got that all developed in his head. But since he has a 20-issue run, he's like, well, what can I put in these other 15 issues until we get to that point?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, if in issue 96 everything turns on its head and gets really interesting
Mm-hmm.
and more fast-paced and all, we might have an indication then that he's just really bad at plotting out a longer story arc.
Yeah, which kind of is an odd thing to see, because with Generation 2, it always seemed like there was a whole year there and it was plotted out fairly cohesively, with that hook at the end to continue if there were enough subscriptions to continue, which if
there weren't.
Well, I was about to say, which if Tom DeFalco didn't hate all the licensed books, there might have been. But the thing, I don't know. What happened is 20 years happened, but what else is there to say at that point?
It may be that G2 did this better because there was more editorial control on board, making sure that the story was tighter and that it flowed better from month to month. IDW may well be letting Furman just kind of run his own ship.
And yeah, the one of the things that I don't know if I said it online or not. Interview with John Barber recently, he was talking about basically the fact that he is an editor on some of the other Transformers books, yet he really appreciates and needs his relationship with his own editor. He realizes that he needs more eyes on that book.
Yeah.
And yeah, editors, a good editor is worth his or her weight in gold. It is not necessarily, bad editors are just as bad writers or bad artists when you get to the end product, but the editors are not inherently an evil.
No. An editor that is really good at their job, they may do stuff that the writers and artists hate them for doing to them, but at the same time, they are working their best to strengthen the final product.
Mm-hmm.
And, a good writer, a good artist, they're going to recognize that fact, and, they'll grit their teeth, but they will understand that, okay, they're trying to make my work better for the general audience. It may not be exactly what I wanted to produce anymore, but it's going to still appeal to more people that way.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, one more thing I wanted to bring up. Is it me, or does this issue render the little confrontation between Grimlock and Scorponok last issue almost completely pointless?
There was a confrontation between Grimlock and Scorponok last issue? Well, the book sure acts like it didn't happen.
Yeah. Grimlock's still wandering around. No one's watching him. He's not under control. He's not, he's not actually suddenly obedient, which, you would not expect Grimlock to be, but at the same time, Scorponok just leaves him and then wanders off to go have conversations where Perceptor explains the premise of the book to him.
Right. Yeah, so that seems like something that's like, well, this didn't really work out in the long run. Let's just drop it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, editing.
Yeah.
Hello, and you are joining us for Prime Retro Reviews. I am Amy.
I am Nick. Hello.
Hello. And today,
Hello.
it's been a while since I know it's been back to back, but actually it's been several weeks since we've really recorded. It's great, right?
It's been several weeks. Yeah.
Yes. So we're getting back
Kinda
into
nice.
it. Yeah. So today we are concluding our 5-episode opener retro review of Transformers Prime. The show broadcasted for the first time a little over 2 years ago, November 2010, right after Thanksgiving Day weekend in the USA.
Wow.
On the hub.
That's crazy.
I know, it's 3 years ago. Wow. It's crazy.
Where's
Okay,
the-
well, I said 2 years ago, but yeah. Because, yeah. Oh,
2 years, 4 months.
2 years, 4 months, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the production is owned and created by Hasbro. The first episode was broken up into 5 22-minute parts, and today we are reviewing the last, part 5 of Darkness Rising. Yeah. It was rising, man. Actually,
Yep.
the zombies rising.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
So
A lot of zombies.
lots of, yeah. Season 1 and 2 is available from Shout Factory or Amazon and iTunes as well, which we've previously talked about. So please check out our previous reviews right here on RFC or on YouTube at TF Network channel. Season 3 is near upon us. It premieres March 22nd on the hub. That's in 2 weeks from the time of this recording. Are
I'm
you
excited.
excited?
I'm more than excited. I'm like, yes, finally.
Yes.
You know, my ponies are finished for the season. Now I got my robots. So
Fantastic. We won't
I
give
can't
out.
have one, I get the other.
Yeah. So we won't give out any spoilers on what will be this season other than it's called Beast Hunters. But if you're net savvy, you can find the details of some of the episodes that have been announced at this point. So, but we will most definitely be watching season 3.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Yes. And you can stay tuned for more Transformers news on tformers.com. So, that being said, let's wrap up the latest episode, or the last episode of the show opener. So, part number 5. Well, as in last episode, Jack is not with the bots. So RC drives up and has a heart-to-heart because she's not ready to say goodbye. It's like, aww.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the bot...
She's such a girl.
I know
she
she is
tries
such a
not to
girl.
be a girl, but she's a girl.
She's such a girl, yeah. Oh, good times. So meanwhile, the bots back at Autobase find where that the space bridge is that was hinted at in episode 4, and it's a little out of reach because it's in space. Yeah, and well, the ground bridge that they have technically can't reach that far, and the risk is if it's too far, that the connection will snap, leaving their particles all over space. Ew. Very messy.
Ew, robot goo.
But Prime makes the call that they will have to chance it or risk facing a Cybertron-sized zombie horde. Because zombie horde. Yeah. Well, and you got to make sure that they don't take over the Earth, right? This is your new home. So at that point, QRC with a very convinced Jack that he's back. And they drive up, but he's like, "Guess who's here?" Just in time to say goodbye again. No. Well, yeah. The humans have to say goodbye as the bots.
Ratchet's thrilled about this. Really.
Oh yeah, we're getting there. But not before Ratchet says, "If you leave me here alone, I'll never forgive you." Things would have turned out much differently if they'd all died and Ratchet was the only one left.
Oh god, poor. Ratchet would be like, "This is it. I'm just gonna chop my own head off."
Take me apart, the spare parts, because that's all I'm worth for now, right?
Turn me into scrap.
Yeah. It's like, kill me now. I'm the only one left. Poor Ratchet. I'm glad that they all survived, though. Okay, so Off the guts go into the final frontier, and the ground bridge works. They were worried that it might, but it did. It does. They arrive before Megatron and the ship, and it's them against the Nemesis, which only makes Megatron laugh. But all is not in Megatron's favor, as the Nemesis has sustained a bit of damage, courtesy of Bulkhead when he was playing Papa Bear last episode. Booyah!
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, he did.
Because their radio the radio satellite has been destroyed. Well, yeah, damaged. So, only Soundwave has been already deployed to another space dish, or something, to find out where to send their Dark Energon payload. They thought they had it, but no. Okay.
Soundwave.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. This space dish that he's off to find is like one that happens to be on Earth. It's the Very Large Array in New Mexico, as compared to their fictional giant-sized array in Texas, as they say in the episode. I was like, at first I thought, did they say that wrong? Because the first thing I thought, Very Large Array, I know is in New Mexico because I used to drive past it. When we go to different places, we'd go vacationing, and I'd actually gone past that Very Large Array a couple times because where I grew up, it wasn't too far away. And so when they said that, I thought, oh, is this a mistake? Because actually, no, they called it a giant-sized array. So they made up their own fictional one for Texas. Now, I don't know why that was, because either they didn't do their research or they just made up that detail because they needed permission to use the VLA. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't make sense that they would. Yeah, because I didn't think that the VLA was copyrighted, but I don't know. Maybe just to cover all their bases, they just made up their own. But I was like, oh. So it almost sounds like it's wrong, but it's not, because it's not the Very Large Array, it's the giant-sized array.
I'm so glad you know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I just knew about the Very Large Array because I'm kind of a geek in science things. And I have a son that's really into those geeky things too. So
that's cool. That's so cool.
So either way, all of our bases are covered because they made up their own fictional sized array. So there you go. Either way, that's where Soundwave has gone, and Agent Fowler isn't up to par to alert the area to incoming danger. So Raph tries to hack the system, but they have this firewall thing that's too thick. So Jax jumps in to say, "Well, if we were on the inside, could you do it?" And he's like, "Prime's not okay with that," but Jack makes a good argument. Coming from the guy that at the very end of fourth, he's like, I don't want to have anything to do with this because it's not your safety. Anyhow, okay, he's like, yeah.
I think he likes to look after Raph, though.
Yeah, he does. But he is kind of putting them in danger in a sense because,
Oh, yeah.
But then he says, okay, our safety, important. But if what you say is true, the whole planet is at risk and more than just 3 humans. And so Raph goes, okay, let's go do it.
And Miko was on board before.
Oh, yeah, she's just a crazy chick, so this is why we love her so much, right?
Yeah. I like Miko. Yeah. I know a lot of people don't like Miko, but I like Miko.
So in space, the cons attack. On Earth, the humans, they ground bridge. And a big force in space, a little force against one con. Will they persevere?
Let's see. It's the beginning of a new show. I'm going to guess yes.
Yes, okay. So the kids get in, Raph hacks, and Soundwave is there right next door. So Raph is going to get a copy of the code that he's seeing, that he's using or whatever. And the info the cons are using in the system to piggyback on the connection. Soundwave has, they piggyback on the connection that Soundwave has already made. And the dishes are moved into position as Raph punks them and interferes. Soundwave discovers that they are there, and then he deals with the kids. He gets the upper hand.
This is where I think Soundwave is like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
He is so creepy cool, and he doesn't say a thing. He's just there, and he makes his presence known. And you're just like, oh, dang, I soiled myself.
Yeah,
he's the creepiest of all the Transformers in this show. It's just like, I would not mess with him.
Well, I think it was it Raph or was it Miko that grabs the axe?
The axe.
She's, they were using it, but Soundwave gets the upper hand and he He doesn't slump. That's the thing that I thought was really cool about this part right here, because he doesn't slump to their level. He doesn't try to hurt them. He's just trying to get them away from the computer, allow that. But that's not how he works. He's like, he just tries to get them away from the computer. Then he takes the axe, cuts the hard line so they can't interfere anymore, and then just kind of like, oh, you're beneath me. I'm not even going to waste a weapon on you. I liked that about Soundwave. He pwned the whole situation, and he was like, it was better. It was just so how he handled the whole situation.
With Soundwave, cool. he has a job to do. Megatron gives him a job. He does it to the T. He doesn't take any side trips like Starscream.
No.
He's just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. That's how it's going to be done.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
So he beats the kids at their own game, including the photobomb thing that happens at the very end. It was great.
Now, wait. I think it's in season 2 that comes back into play.
Yeah.
I was just like, that is awesome. I thought it was just like a little gag, but then they used it to their advantage in the next season.
I'm glad that they did, though, because it just showed that Soundwave didn't just take that just to take it. It was like, because it kind of did look like, hey, I'm going to take a picture of you. Well, I'm going to take a picture back of you. Yeah, exactly. But, it was just good because it was like, there's more behind that with Soundwave. He wasn't just doing that for that. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a picture because I might need to use that later. Thank you very much.
I love how he uses the same audio as Miko's phone. So
yeah.
Love it.
That's also what kind of brings in the creep factor, right?
You're just like, this guy,
yeah.
I love him. So cool.
And he continues. We'll probably gush about Soundwave in future episodes. So
for sure.
He's really awesome.
He could be on the screen for 2 seconds, and we could talk about him for 5 minutes.
Exactly. So Megatron wins. He opens the space bridge that they were trying to keep from, getting open, and it opens, and he launches the Dark Energon. Shed your tears now for Cybertron, because it's Zombieland. Let the creep show Let the creep show begin. So what do they have left to do but destroy the space bridge? But how will they do it? Raph raises his hand, and he has the means to provide how to overload the bridge with the handy intel that he copied onto while they were at the giant-sized array. So all comes down to a jump drive. And
this to me was a little too convenient, but hey.
Yeah.
We'll let it go.
It is what it is, right? So Ratchet pauses long enough to say, "Are you sure that this is the only way? Because that space bridge could be the only way back to Cybertron." Yeah, it's kind of got to go, Ratchet. And instead of Prime running the Darkest Hour line, appropriately, it's Ratchet. So, Nicole, is this foreshadowing?
Slightly.
No spoilers, but yes, it is kind of slightly, just a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so the team splits up. The bots go to follow Ratchet's instructions as Prime takes on Megatron, because he's going to do that, right? And yeah, they pull out the whole epic lines as they put the smackdown on, as the zombies are coming. Yeah, with Raph's help, Ratchet finds a weakness in the space bridge. Booyah. But, running interference, Prime.
That's smart pants, Raph.
Yeah. But back to the battle at hand. Starscream interrupts before a killing blow can be laid on Optimus, and Megatron realizes that, you're the distraction. But that's
just barely noticed this.
Yeah.
How many years has he known Starscream? Really?
Yeah.
How many millions of years?
Or the other guys, the fact that they left was like, wait. You let the other guys go, but not Prime.
Yeah.
I can see where things are going on here. Yeah. So, but that's all Prime needs to get the upper hand. So meanwhile, the weakness is reversing for the space bridge. You have to reverse the current. So RC turns the wheel before getting blasted by Megatron as she floats off into space. No!
Poor RC, not RC.
No, not our girl, man, not our girl.
We finally get a cool girl.
I know.
And blast her away.
It's just not right, man. It's not right at all. Ugh. So Ratchet readies the ground bridge as the space bridge starts to tear itself apart because it's overloading, yo. And they jump from the space bridge in time to fall to their escape route. Bumblebee grabs RC on the descent. Meanwhile, Megatron is at the event horizon of the space bridge to see his dark minion army almost at the threshold.
Let me tell you, that was like one of the coolest things that you could see on screen.
Oh, yeah. Because he's like
if you
reaching
can watch
his
this
hands
on
out.
a big screen, you've got to find the biggest screen because the colors and the lighting and just the music and everything that's coming together in just this 15 seconds, you're just like, this is gorgeous. This is beautiful animation. I loved it.
Yep. And I liked the fact that he was reaching out and he was like practically touching the hands of the guy, and I thought, that is creepy, yo.
But the thing is, after I was watching it again today, I'm like, I really feel sorry for Megatron.
Yeah, you kind of do, because like these are
like,
all his
this work, and he's so close.
Yeah. And that's at the point when it explodes. Oh, snap. So in the end, Starscream's speeches about Megatron's demise, because this is what Starscream does. As the bots return with the injured RC, Prime is sure Megatron didn't survive Ground Zero. Wanna bet? And
it's Megatron.
Yeah.
I've said this before. As long as he has his brain and his spark, Megatron will always be alive.
Very true. Very true. And awake Fowler thanks Prime for the save on his account and the Earth's, and then he leaves. And now they have no way home. They are here to stay. They will defend themselves, humanity, and ultimately their new home. Booyah!
Yeah!
So, for an opening show back in the day, were you hooked at this point, Nicole?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I was just like, oh, wow. Because there was a scene at the very end with Jack and RC when we thought RC was dead. And I just about lost it. I about let the tears flow. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's like we already lost Cliff Jumper.
No, I'm just like, this is not how it's supposed to be. It's a very emotional, very good 5-parter for sure.
Yeah. I have to agree with you there. I was pretty happy with it. I was like, if this is the way every episode after this is going to be, I'm going to have a hard time not getting every single one of these episodes and loving them. Oh my gosh. Oh goodness. But yes. It was all downhill from there. I was just kidding. No, actually, we had some really, really good episodes after this, and we will be highlighting those between now and the time that we hit them. I can't wait to get to them. So yeah, that's us.
One of my favorites is 2 Away.
Yeah.
2 Away.
Scrap Heap.
You gotta love the scraplets.
The first time we've heard the name for years. Now we finally actually get to meet them. That was pretty cool.
Oh, they're so cute.
It's like a cross between something cute and the Langoliers. We'll get to that in a next episode, right? Yeah, cool. All right, well, that is us. That is the end of Darkness Rising, the opening explosive episode of Transformers Prime. Next time is our first regular episode, and we'll see you that review. Ciao.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Radio Free Cybertron will return after these messages.
Battle beat wood, fire burns wood. Battle beat fire, water puts out fire. Battle beat water, wood beats water. Battle beat, collect every one of these incredible creatures to battle for fire. Just activate their battle badges.
I got fire, I got water beats fire.
Battle beat can grow into an army. Collect all 84. Battle beat.
Muscle Invasion Update. Scientists discover muscle things have come to wrestle. America's only hope, the Battling Belt and the wrestling ring.
He moves left, he's hooked one, into the Battling Belt it goes. He's got another. Folks, this wrestling ring may save the world. One more to go. He's got him. His Battling Belt. Oh, hard knocking, rockin' ring, Battling Belt, muscle figure packs each sold separately. New from Mattel. Can you save the world?
You can hear our show on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones. on demand, and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the app stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio.
It's the evil Decepticons. Powerful jets that transform into dangerous Decepticon robots. Ramjet and Starscream with missile launchers and light and sound power packs. But first, they'll have to battle the heroic Autobots. Inferno, Jazz, and Sideswipe. They're robots in disguise. Jazz strikes back with a robot-ripping rocket launcher, and Inferno's water cannon is raining pain. Transformers! Transformers Generation 2. Autobot cars and Decepticon jets each sold separately.
We now return to Radio Free Cybertron. Radio Free Cybertron.
Transformers.
Rewind.
This week on Transformers Rewind, it's the Rebirth from Generation 1.
Remove your heads. Let the transformations begin.
You know, Rebirth marked the end of the American G1 series. The end. So we'll see you next week.
All right, and see ya. Bye. Okay.
All right, that's it. That's Transformers Afterbirth.
I love Rebirth. I can't tell you how many times I've watched Rebirth over the years. Probably.
I enjoy.
I love it in the way that I love like a deformed dog.
Oh.
It has like 3 legs and like a missing ear. It's super cute, but man, it's ugly.
Well.
I think I have probably. I think I don't know that I love Rebirth as much as I used to like 10, 12 years ago, but I can watch it and enjoy it for what it is.
I mean, it's just sitting there limping and hobbling along, but you're like, you just can't help but like, oh, look at it.
I think that I think my mind or my impression of Rebirth has sort of been colored in a negative way based on the Headmaster's Marvel comic, which I've over the years decided that I like better.
Oh yeah, well, Headmasters.
Oh yes.
Comics.
I mean,
yeah.
And also by the Headmaster's cartoon, which is just so radically different, but there's way more to it than Rebirth, and I just sort of gravitate toward that a little more now too. But I still really love Rebirth.
Rebirth is up against the fact that there's a lot of very different takes on the same characters, and that's really unique in a way that we don't have in a lot of other fiction, where it's like, you know, you have Rebirth, you have the Marvel comic, you have the Japanese version, and they all take the same thing and they do it in a really different way. And I don't know that any of them is particularly good. None of them really sort of like work. I really just kind of want to cut them up and like put them together, and like somewhere there's like a Franken Headmaster series that's actually good.
Unaligned continuity.
Yeah. So between recordings, we were talking about TV series that end on a cliffhanger, and they may not be picked up. So Rebirth is sort of weird. So the Return of Optimus Prime, you could almost see it was the end of season 3. It's almost a cliffhanger, but something big happens, and the series could have really ended there. I mean, there was a finite end. Rebirth was the beginning of season 4, and it was supposed to be like a big change and everything, but nothing came after. So it's kind of like things might have been better off if we'd ended it with the Return of Optimus Prime, but we got Rebirth, and it's a beautiful, unique snowflake. So
it feels like, I mean, it's always felt like a bridge to me. It's always felt like the end of season 3 was the end of Transformers. The original series. It's always like Rebirth is sort of meant to be a bridge, like 3 episodes that bridges the gap between what would be, like if it had gone on. Like, if there really was a season 4, and even though this is called season 4, it's more of what I would call it, like a prequel to the next series. It's like, if you went on, there would be, like, the next series that would go on somewhere in space, not Earth, and, like, Spike would be the leader of the Autobots, with Cerebro or whatever, and you would have all of these headmaster characters, and then you would get into pretenders and power masters. All that stuff would become part of this next series, and it didn't happen.
So when I reflect back on G1, I kind of do stop at the end of Return of Optimus Prime. I love Rebirth, but I don't really sort of start back there. But Rebirth to me sort of begins like this new, not continuity, but new series that sort of kind of carried through the commercials, because we saw, the commercials. There was original animation for the commercials. There wasn't like a story arc, but we did get to see little flashes of things that Rebirth, in my mind, exists in that universe. So,
well, I never minded Rebirth's open. I mean, Rebirth was one I never saw as a child, so I only
I didn't either.
I sure did. I watched
it. It didn't exist to me until later. I was like, "What is this?" Like in college.
But I didn't know. I didn't know episodes existed after the movie until I was at least 15 or so.
I still feel like they don't. Anyway, okay.
Screw you, JD. Screw you with a broom handle. Seriously.
No, I always quite liked the open ending of Rebirth. I think that, though, is not... If I'd watched it at the time, maybe I would have felt different, but I think now, looking back on it, and knowing that Transformers did not stop there, and that the storyline went on to be about Pretenders and Power Masters and all these other crazy things, the fact that the cartoon did not go, and now Galvatron is destroyed and peace reigns throughout the universe, the end, I like that because it means that there is room to imagine that all this crazy stuff that happened in the toys did go on to happen. They didn't put that full stop at the end of the war. I'm sorry for Americans, that period at the end of the G1 series.
What a full stop is.
I don't trust you. They didn't do that. They didn't say the end there, bam, it's over. They just that extra little tease at the end with Galvatron and Zarek and Scorpion knockoff out in space, just to let you know that it never ends. That the war goes on.
And, of course, there was Headmaster RC. Don, to you.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for this, we wouldn't have had, Don, really.
Yeah. I wouldn't have known who Don was if it wasn't for this episode.
Rang into being fully formed with the broadcast of
Venus to Dono.
God.
Well, I've spoken with David Wise at several BotCons. And I really believe if he had been given the 5 episodes he was promised initially, that I think Rebirth would have been a lot stronger as something folks remember fondly instead of just being... It's kind of a joke for a lot of folks. It is. But the reason I love it is because the whole thing about toys and Transformers is kids imagining themselves part of this world. If you've got characters that are part human, it's easier to project yourself into those people to be part of that world. And the stories you could tell would be immensely more personal to a degree. That's to me, that was like a gateway into becoming a new generation of kids being part of the Transformers process, because you had an easier gateway because there's already humans that are part robots, but they're still themselves.
Yeah, I think, talking about like the 3 different series and 3 different approaches, I will give that Rebirth at least probably gives the most plausible way in which like the humans and the Cybertronians would interact, because in the comic they never really explicitly say it, but you sure get the feeling that they're replacing organs with like robotic bits. And like chopping the people up.
And headmasters are just robots.
And headmasters are just robots, so you don't really have a human aspect, to it. But Rebirth really does put forward that story idea where it's like the humans are individual people, they have an advantage, and there's previous story, to back it up. I think, there's a episode, season 1 or season 2 episode where like Spike is doing something very similar to this, where it's like he's, helping them aim or something, and they talk about how, humans can, be partners with Transformers. So there's precedent.
Are you thinking of when Chip controlled Pro, JD?
Maybe, well, not that so much, but there was like another episode where it was like similar, but that may be it too.
Autobot Spike? What? Huh?
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah.
but I think that there's some precedent for him.
It's probably the more straightforward way of doing it, but it's also probably the least interesting one.
It's the least,
They ride around inside their head.
Is that less interesting than, hey, we're Transformers that have been around for a long time, we just now showed up? I mean, is that really less interesting than that?
Well, no, I'm not talking about necessarily the backstory behind it. I'm just talking about the straightforward mechanics.
Well, the mechanics are creepy. Like, Daniel sitting in RC's head and looking through her eyes, that is immensely creepy.
That's the ethics. I'm just saying that the simple, straightforward fact of they ride around in their heads. There's no mental ball. I mean, that's the thing about Rebirth doesn't. I mean, part of it is the visuals of Rebirth, but it never seems entirely sure what the extent of the bond is.
Right.
You know,
it's love. It's love. That's the bond.
The binary bonding is supposed to be a deal, but they never really get into that. Like I said, at least with the comics, they give you the impression that it's like, not only is there a mental connection between them, but we might be replacing some of their organs with like robotic parts and stuff.
Well, that's
they say that, JD. They say
their
that
body is completely re-engineered. But in this, it's like I've built a door into their head. So if you just step through,
right. You step into there, and then you're fine, and then you get to wear the cybernetic suit made of their made of their heads.
And you'll feel like you're a part of one another somehow.
In a previous Transformers Rewind that we actually recorded today, we were talking about Showdown on the surface of the moon. And I wanted to mention something here. So we decided that in this episode in Rebirth that the Autobots and the Decepticons can survive without their head. They just can't transform or anything. Well, Black Zarak's head gets knocked off and like erupts into flames like in that episode, and he just flies off.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of that is supposed to be because his actual headmaster is inside his tummy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just sort of, but it's just sort of strange dichotomy, though, with the way that sort of handled.
Yeah, it's treated like, oh my god, his head's knocked off, but he's still getting up and walking around. What's going on? Ah! You know, whereas in this show, it's like, no, it's no big auxiliary memory source that we've never mentioned before. It's cool.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me is I was sitting there thinking about this earlier, and it's like, do you ever think that Pounce and Wingspan sat around like a little while and later, and and they're like, do you have any sevens? Go fish. You know, you ever thought that it's kind of weird that like Punch and Counterpunch turn into the same car? Like, yeah, I thought about that. You have any kings? Yeah, and it's kind of weird that it's like you always see one or the other, but you never see them together, and they're both spies. I just think that's weird. That's totally weird, man. You have any eights?
I was going to say that's probably the most infamous moment from the whole Rebirth. It's not the headmasters. It's the fact that they can't figure out that I hear my Autobot counterpart is close.
He's nearby. He's real nearby.
Real nearby.
Yeah.
It's like that's the equivalent of Clark Kent wearing glasses.
Yeah,
that's like
nobody gets it.
That's like me on Alt Toys Transformers, just opening up a different account and posting something and trolling somebody, like 10 seconds after posting something else.
Yeah,
that's exactly like that. So one of my favorite things though about the episode is the intro, because we get flywheels, and flywheels is awesome.
When I saw this, Brian, I thought, all right, no more of this crappy third season animation.
Yeah.
They're using the toy footage. They're going to be using toy animation. No.
Yeah. The animation is lacking a little bit.
Does it mean anything that we have gotten this far into a conversation about Rebirth and not mention the plasma energy chamber, like, at all?
Okay.
We're just following the example Beast Machine.
Oh man. I mean, yeah, this does eventually connect back to Beast Machines, but like that's the whole thrust of this is like, let's make another MacGuffin
out of nowhere.
Like, sort of like the Matrix of Leadership, except it's kind of like the key to Vector Sigma.
Yeah. You know what really confuses me about the first episode of this regarding the plasma energy chamber is I can't tell from the script whether Optimus Prime is lying, confused, or just making stuff up.
Yes.
Someone asked him, Optimus, what's the plasma energy chamber? It's a storage chamber. And he's like, what's the plasma energy chamber? It's a foundry. And I'm like, well, which is it, guy?
It's a foundry that stores energy.
So, like, one thing I always liked about season 2 and season 3, when they talked about like the history of Cybertron, there was almost a delicacy to the way that they spoke about it, and it wasn't just something they threw out there necessarily. There was usually some context or whatever. But like this is very much like Headmaster, just completely indelicate. It's like, oh well, it's the plasma energy chamber, and I'm just going to go to Vector Sigma. No, I'm just going to throw this in there, and stuff just happens. There's no
Vector Sigma. It's nice to see again. And that's David Wise even remembering
that it exists.
That he wrote the key to Vector Sigma, and that Alpha Trion was in there. And everything else, that's just a perturbing amount of continuity as far as the G1 cartoon is concerned.
Really, it's a shocking amount that there would be things referenced that happened more than an episode ago.
I must confer with Alpha Trion, but he's in Vector Sigma. No, I talked to him in the Matrix just last episode.
Overall, though, I think we can all agree that this is just a fantastic episode.
I mean, in whatever way you want that to mean, fantastically horrible, fantastically bizarre.
Do you really honestly think it's terrible, JD?
No,
seriously.
I don't, but that's what I was getting around to. Whether you think it's fantastically wonderful, it's fantastic. It doesn't matter what your context is. It is epically all the way whatever that is, because there's actually, I love it. There's a lot of fun. The animation leaves a lot to be desired.
It's probably not ACOM's absolute worst work, but it's up there.
It's up there.
It's not quite the last few bits of Five Faces of Darkness bad.
One thing I don't want to think about that. So one thing, like a potential season 4 that would have been great would have been the interaction between the partners and the masters, the whatever you want to call them. And that there's a lot of great character interaction here, and there's a lot of great setup for that with the characters, the Nebulons and their partners, and I guess we've kind of almost been robbed of that. There's a lot of potential there that just never got to be.
Well, this is the only version of the Headmaster story where you would ever have got that either, because the comics did it weird, and the Japanese show never had it. Like, this was the only one where there was ever really, besides the occasional interactions of Fortress Maximus and Spike, which only came up once in a Budiansky story, and then Furman sort of ran with it. Furman ran with it in the most interesting way later. That was really the only real use of the idea that there were two minds, one body, was when Spike and Buster would battle for control at the end of the run. You had Zarak, and just Scorponok ceased to be. It was just Zarak inside in the Marvel comics under Furman. And this was the only one that could really have given us the two minds, one body, arguing. Yeah, and I was like, you get that scene in the last part of the Rebirth where the heads all just jump off the bodies, and it's like, you little creeps.
Hey, we need our heads.
That seems like the sort of thing this concept is rife with potential for that kind of conflict.
It'd have been great.
And also one thing I always wish we got the episodes for would be, imagine how Carly would react to her son and her husband.
Oh, that's a great point. I've never thought of that before.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at the same time, one has to think is like, to be honest, like, it's nice to wonder, but it's not like the cartoon would have ever.
Oh no, I'm just.
I know. It's nice. It's like we could have got more episodes, and that would never have come up. It's it would have been absolutely fine. So Rebirth would have sat in the corner while the Wikis had dinner.
So one thing I always like about season 3 is Spike is like this ambassador of Earth, and he's always treated with respect, and he somehow has expertise and negotiation and stuff like that. When this episode he has like some sort of advanced theoretical understanding of physics. It's like, can you reverse the rockets? Well, that doesn't even make sense.
Do it.
But he made it work.
The polarity of the rockets. So what?
Yeah. Well, no, Spike. What does he ask them to do? Can you? No, he does actually say, "Can you reverse its polarity from output to intake?"
Yeah, it's like,
and then I suppose it can be done. And then
Like,
you imagine Spike went off the screen, and they were just like,
"It worked."
Well, I suppose it can be done in like reverse physics.
It's going from blow to suck.
That's
intake. I don't think that's a polarity, Spike.
Spike, do you understand how a rocket works, Spike? Have you ever seen a rocket?
It's like a chemical rocket. I mean, that makes no sense.
It's like it shoots out one side, Spike. You're wanting it to shoot out of the other side of its head.
It's like refilling a balloon. Refilling a balloon, it works exactly the same way. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, if they built the rocket out of everybody's power packs, those power packs do have to be recharged. Maybe all those packs together drew the energy out of the sun.
Don't help him. Don't help him.
I've always thought about how kind of almost sadistic that is in a way, because it's like the Galvatron just basically ripped the power source from all the Autobots and used them as fuel. And just left them for dead. I'm surprised they were actually even able to function. Of course, I'm not really surprised in the sense that it's a cartoon and they're not going to just kill them like that. But I just always thought that was an incredibly just sort of cruel and realistic thing that would happen.
Well, I mean, I figured that the whole point was like then Vector Sigma was re-energized and the whole planet glowed with the light of Vector Sigma, and I'm like, oh, Vector Sigma gives life, so they all came back, and I always figured that's what that was supposed to, but maybe I'm reading too much into it.
That's what I thought too. I mean, I was exactly there with you.
So I really enjoy Galvatron's plan in this too. You know, it's easily overlooked because so little of the three-parter is actually about it, and it's everybody just doing the Danny Hill run around looking for the key to the chamber. But you know, Galvatron has moved Cybertron so he can destroy the sun, the Earth, and Cybertron, and just completely obliterate everything that's ever opposed him. Like, Galvatron does not want control of Cybertron anymore. It is toys out of pram. I don't want it anymore. I'm gonna blow it up. You know, that's real season finale kind of plotting, and I do like that. It is a plot worthy of a season finale, a series finale.
And also, you could say that that's actually the sign of a sane Galvatron from the end of Web World, because that is not some half-baked loony Galvatron plan. He
was really still pretty loony in this episode, though.
He's not that loony. He only loses it whenever he finds out that they've got the Nebulans inside them. You know, he
hated that. Yeah,
I love that. He's going to shoot his own troops.
There's no love lost between he and Zarak. They like, just hate each other. I
don't know. I think they kind of hate each other in that way that Megatron and Starscream hate each other.
Yeah. Even as from being a kid. The ending with Zarak and Galvatron basically arguing over who was going to lead and everything. That's just, I've carried that with me my entire life basically, and every single imagining of what would have come next just basically sprang forth from that. And when this was released or finished or produced, did they know that it was going to be the last episode, or did they think...
It seems like they did, yeah. David Wise, I think, has said a few times that he felt when he was writing it that it was the end.
Yeah, well, actually, Chris, he did, because he was told when it was taken to a three-parter that this would be the last series of the show. So he was told.
Why did they even do? Why did they even do it? Other than just to try to eke out some money to sell those toys, or
one last chance to sell toys.
Well, it was supposed to be a 5-parter, start of a new season. Then he got word that the show was ending, and they cut it back to 3.
I mean, because there's so much time it takes place between writing it and then, voicing it and then animating it. It just seems like they would say, well, we have a script that's great, thanks, we're not doing anything with it.
But there was probably a contract or something to someone, you know what I mean? It's like, and again, it's like, why not take it? You get 3 episodes to sell some toys, which is most of what this show is.
Oh my God, yes, the chronic for new toys.
There's Samwise and so and Bristleflick and Resin Frozen, and you need to buy all of them.
It's like, look how badass Six Shot is. He just took on all the aerial bots.
You won't be seeing him again, but buy the toy. 5 of 5 now.
Well, David said he found out not long after he was commissioned to write the 5-parter. I remember him saying, and he phrased it as "not long after." So there was, I mean, he had only just started writing the drafts when he found out it was going from 5 to 3. Because I asked him, "Is the stuff that you wrote that you didn't use available for publication?" He says, "I didn't even get that far, other than just scribble notes on paper."
Yeah.
So it must have been a fast decision.
It kind of sounds like any other G1 script, though. So yeah. I'm kidding. I love G1.
Yeah.
Yes.
So any final thoughts on this episode that we want to get out, Don? This is your episode. This is like the defining episode for you.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna say this without being too much of a screen time hog. The reason I've always liked Headmaster RC was because it was the best of both worlds. No Star Trek reference intended. You got.
I'm sorry, Don. I want to say something horrible.
Nearly human.
And a small child. No. Okay.
No. RC is the last movie era character we have not gotten as a G1 toy. Yes, we have the animated toy, and it's a phenomenal toy, and I'm glad it was made.
Creo toy, the micro-change Creon looks pretty G1 to me.
Yes, yeah. But also, we never got the Headmaster. The only Headmaster that's not been released is also RC. So that one figure could fill so many places in people's collection from a G1
and so many people could fill
Headmaster's
places. So.
I've always liked that character. I like a well-written character, and RC in most of her incarnations has been fairly well-written. It seems to me that one character could fill so many gaps in so many collections that it's a crime that it hasn't been done. And I want to see a good character get a good toy.
Don, if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen in 2013 or 2014.
Definitely.
I mean, we're getting a freaking 2-foot tall Metro
kind of crazy, yeah.
And Aaron has your photo on his wall with a sticky note that says Headmaster RC. So you know that.
I don't doubt it.
I'm serious. I bet this is on someone's like year-end evaluation that they're going to get they're going to get a Headmaster RC out.
Imagine Aaron walking through the Hasbro development offices, hands behind his back, with a sort of lab coat on, walking in. So, where are we on that Headmaster RC? We're still working on it, sir. We haven't quite developed it. We're working, though. Very sorry. Mm-hmm. Oh.
But no, I would love to see one. I would buy 5 of them. I bought 3 Big Daddies. I'll buy 5 of those.
That's why I like the character. And go Miko!
Radio Free Cybertron, the original Transformers internet radio show since 1999. 100% girlfriend free since 1999.
We are back. So, like I said, Transformers Rewind this week was the Rebirth. Next week, we are going to end things off this month, or this past month's recording. It's not the end of the month, but we recorded all of these last month with Beginning. So, and the week after that, we'll probably jump back to another Beast Wars episode. I think we had a lot of fun doing Code of Hero. So, I am up for recommendations, so if anyone wants to throw out any recommendations as far as Beast Wars stuff, let me know. So, actually, one more thing. I have a little bit of news that we failed to get to because we couldn't actually find it. But in the chat, who was it that found it for us?
Myco99.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, Myco99. Thank you for pulling this out. But I was actually asking people if they can give some good recommendations for or ways to support an argument to get someone to read Transformers more than meets the eye, specifically for any Transformers comic, because that's just one of the things. People have always been kind of prejudiced against Transformers comic because it's just a licensed comic. But more than meets the eye is such a fantastic book. Red's a good book. If you like the original stuff, Generation 1, Regeneration 1, can be an enjoyable book, sort of, especially if you're like a fan of the Marvel stuff. But it's still kind of hard to get people to get into that. And the recommendation that I saw was to do Last Night of the Wreckers. And that might be easier since it's a miniseries. It's in trade form. I have the trade, and I can hand that off. I think that's a great recommendation. And Paul had recommended, our very own RC historian, going back to the Beast Wars recommendation, he had recommended Dark Glass, which we are going to do in April. Read into that what you will. Dark Glass will be in April. Okay. Go ahead, Don.
Brian, I had a suggestion on what they might want to read.
Sure.
It's kind of odd, but if they're looking for characters they can relate to, maybe the Dreamwave More Than Meets the Eye guides. Read about the characters, see if there's some characters they like or they find interesting, and then look for a miniseries or an arc that has those characters in it.
I guess I have those somewhere. I don't know if I would be able to, if anyone, I don't think I could recommend anyone reading anything Dreamwave, except for maybe, like, again, the early run on Armada, which was good, but ended up not being. Yeah.
Well, the guidebooks are pretty nice, and you get a lot of fleshed out characters, ones that normally didn't get anything toy wise.
Yeah, and you get a lot of diverse art in those as well. So, let's see here. So, one thing that we actually wanted to talk about, but we couldn't find the story on. So, Transformers Go, which is the Takara Tomy version of Beast Hunters, there's a solicitation that was announced at BBTS today for a 3-part combiner being composed of a jet, a police car, and a fire truck. And apparently it's going to be a combiner. And it's going to combine in any number of ways. So apparently there are 3 different options. The photo that we've been given, we assume is a mock-up because it looks like Masterpiece Prowl. So I'm pretty sure that Masterpiece Prowl is not going to be a combiner. But wouldn't that be awesome if it was? Obviously, of course, the way that this is broken out with the lines going straight through the arms and the torso, probably not the way.
Yeah.
But it's basically going to work out so that the toy can, I guess in a way it could be like a power linksing, if you could look at it that way, where you had the 2 Transformers. One could be the base and the other could be the top. Well, one could be the base, one could be the top, and then one could be the center, and they can alternate in any of those various ways. It looks like potentially.
Yeah, it says the police car is possibly going to be Wheeljack. The jet is possibly going to be Starscream, and the fire truck is possibly going to be Ultra Magnus, which leaves the question: why would those 3 combine together?
It's one hell of a party. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was Blade Raider in the chat said that basically this transformation scheme is Getter Robo, and yeah, that is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean anything to anybody here except probably Don.
I'm still wishing they were. I would still like to see some sort of Mugen Bind sort of combination scheme for various reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming these are going to be deluxe size figures.
Based on the price point for 2 of them, I would say so, but the other sounds like it's going to be more expensive. It was like $65.
Yeah.
Now, one of them it was being said that it would have lights and sounds. So, and Japan usually doesn't put a lot of light and sounds in their Transformers.
That's interesting.
Not since, I guess it was Galaxy Force, was it?
Because I remember they gutted the electronics for several of our Energon figures and our the ones we got that they got later on. They had no electronics, like Landmine.
Mm-hmm. I want more video games in transforming robots.
Ironhide, Energon Ironhide also didn't have his electronics.
Energon Ironhide didn't have anything except piles and piles of crap.
Yeah. And then, of course, they stripped electronics from all those other things, and then inexplicably made Armada Hotshot a laser rod.
I actually didn't know that.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he has one hand that lights up, so he can hold the Japanese Star Saber, which is clear plastic.
I didn't know that. I don't remember that. And I was like obsessive compulsive about that stuff when that came out. Did that come out later on? Did it take them longer to go in and make that change?
No, it came out with the other Micron Legends stuff, as far as I know.
Holy crap! You know, it's you know, with new stuff coming out, you're always learning something new or hearing something new. But it's not often that you hear something like from something that you know pretty well like that. That's wild.
Yeah, when I got back into this with Armada, I started looking stuff up. Managed to grab a fair amount of Micron stuff on clearance, but never could get a hold of that hotshot.
Oh, I wonder what that goes for now.
It's a good question.
I'm going to find out. So, yeah, but, yeah, I guess anything else on the show this week? Yeah, this actually is a pretty hefty show. I think we're probably running at this point, like, over 2 hours. I was hoping that after last week we wouldn't hit another 2-hour show, but we've been doing a lot of 2-hour shows lately. Last week I think was an hour 50. No, it was an hour. No, let's see here. I really, like this year, I really wanted to have consistency across basically how long the shows were, the segments, and everything. But we've been like hitting hour 52 hour plus for like almost the whole year. It's just crazy.
Can't put a time limit on perfection.
Yeah.
I was going to say something like, this is like dehydrated awesome, just add water.
Yeah. So people watching live are like, what? The show's only been like 10 minutes. But yeah, we so for the live viewers, a lot of them don't like the fact that we actually go in and like insert a lot of other content. I actually used to do this all at once, but it ended up taking so long to do the live show that I'm like, just go download it. So if you're watching live, we appreciate it. We love having you here. But if you want to catch out all the awesome stuff, it'll be on YouTube later. But if you're not watching live, you should be. It's great. We love the chat, and we actually do live Google Plus Hangout after the show each week. And Diecast is our host.
Yeah, and I think today we were going to start with a topic.
Oh, wow.
A topic. Just so there's a little bit less of the, oh God, what should we say? In the beginning. Because it always turns into a great time, but for like the first 10, 15 minutes, we're all like, yeah.
It's like yeah.
And another good reason to tune in live, Brian, is my cat might attack me at any time.
Massey might attack when Massey attacks.
Yes.
Hey, Don, so you really need to sign up with Google Plus.
I need to. It's just something about this laptop. I tried it, and it just can't give me error messages.
You have to turn it on first. I know you're not that much of a Luddite. I know. I'm picking.
Maybe Brian can log in and help you out.
Oh, God. Don't. JD is not here. Don't pick that up from JD. That's just not funny. Actually, yeah, JD is not on this week. He's not feeling well. He's been sick for the last couple weeks. We actually didn't have a Fanboy Versus this weekend. But somehow he manages to get on to Superhero Time. I don't know why that is. Actually, I don't even know if he was on this past Superhero Time or not.
He was.
Darn that, JD.
But he was being medically assisted by Oxycontin.
Oh, wow, that sounds awesome. There's no video, so you don't get to see him drool.
Yeah, but it's great because he's there. He's slurring his speech and saying, I think I need to take another one. And everybody's saying, no, you do not want to get hooked on that crap. Come on.
I need to listen to Superhero Time this week.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to do that on the way to work tomorrow. Now that Kim has started the new job, we carpool together, and she is going to hate that. Yeah, she doesn't listen to anything that we do. Of course, I don't either. I'm kidding. For the most part. So, I listen to Superhero Time about once a month. I just don't know what you guys are talking about. Well, actually, none of you guys are on there. But, you guys in the royal sense. I don't know. Okay.
Just think of it, Brian, as another rabbit hole you don't want to fall down, because I only wanted one figure several years ago, and I now have about 10 figure arts, 9 more than I ever planned on getting, thanks to Vangelis and his damn sweet reviews on posing porn and everything. So it's a rabbit hole you want to avoid.
Okay. So I guess I'll do that. But I want to hear JD Slur's speech. Okay, so I guess that's it for this week. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at TF Radio. I'm trying to tweet more seriously. And join our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/TF Radio. If you watch live, and you really should, we are on at about 8 o'clock, 8:30 Eastern Daylight Time now. Daylight Time. That's the operative word. Daylight. It's no longer Standard Time. So if you are in one of those strange places that doesn't observe Daylight Time, we would be an hour earlier than we were before. But we usually hop on around 8 o'clock and start the show around 8:30. It normally runs usually till about 9 or 9:30, depending on how much live content we have. So after that, we have a live Google Plus Hangout, which you can find at tfradio.net/G+. It will take you right there, and that's always fun. And we have lots of other shows. We have Superhero Time, which is our Toku and Sentai podcast. You can find that at tokupodcast.com. Fanboy Versus, our comic book podcast. Do Soundwave sometimes. We haven't had an episode recently. That's our video game podcast. And Screenview is kind of on hiatus. That's our movie and TV review show. It's semi-retired, so we'll see you later. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.